Hello, this is another reading of Dear Martin by Nick Stone. This is chapter 12. On Tuesday, Manny and Jared are both missing from societal evolution. Lunch, too. Justice sees Tyler, Kyle, and Blake, who scowls at Just but keeps his distance, huddled around a table in the senior lounge, whispering. As the day goes on, there's an ever-increasing buzz, though Justice never catches what people are murmuring because they go quiet whenever he gets too close. So when he's walking to the dorm after classes are over, and he sees the bros huddled around Jared's car without Manny, he knows something is up. Especially when Jared turns to give Just the evil eye, and Just sees his face. Now Just knows he and Jared came to blows, but could he have caused that much damage? Dude looked like half his mug got attacked by a swarm of angry hornets. When he gets back to his room, Justice does the unthinkable. He calls Manny. Of course, the guy doesn't answer. There's a knock at the door. Come in, Just says, dropping down into his desk chair. As he pulls out his notebook to skim the letter he wrote Martin after Blake's party, he hears the door open and close before the bed springs squeak. When he turns around, he almost falls out the chair. Dog! Manny is stretched out on Justice's bed, with his hands tucked behind his head. His left hand is all taped up, and it appears one of Jared's hornets got him in the upper lip. Whoa, Just says. Manny just stares at the ceiling. Something pops into Justice's head. Manny pushing open the passenger door of the Range Rover and telling him to get in. Hey man, save it. I know you didn't mean it. Actually I did, Just says. Manny shifts his attention to Just and lifts his eyebrow. I just didn't really consider the bigger picture, Just says. That's what I'm apologizing for. Not putting myself in your shoes or whatever. Manny turns back to the ceiling. I didn't really have your best interest in mind either, so let's call it even and move on. Just nods, cool. After about half a minute, the silence gets awkward. Just cracks his knuckles. So what happened to your lip? I woke up. Okay. Just decides to take a page from Doc's book. Care to expound a bit? Manny smiles, but then grimaces in pain. After a few seconds, he sits up and turns to face Justice. You know why I couldn't really get mad about what you said? You were right. I knew you were right in the moment. I knew you were right the words came out of your mouth. Oh, Just says. Saturday night, I went to a festival with those clowns. 4 times, man, 4. I had to grip my teeth to keep from knocking Jared's punk A out. Every time he made fun of somebody, it was like sandpaper being dragged over my eardrums. Dang. When we saw this black lady with 4 kids, and this fool called her Shaniqua and made a joke about baby daddies, I couldn't take it anymore, Just. I called him on it, and he rolled his eyes, told me to stop being so effing sensitive. Just doesn't say anything. All day Sunday, I sat in my basement, just fuming. I think I listened to Deuce Diggs and played Medal of Honor for like 6 hours straight. The whole time, all I could think about was how I said the same thing to you. How right you were. How good of a friend you've been. Alright with all that soft stuff, Manny. I'm serious, Just. Them fools don't want to hear when they're being offensive. They couldn't care less what it's like to live in our skin. Those a-holes aren't my damn friends. Just doesn't know what to say. Wait, yes he does. So, he gestures to Manny's wrapped hand and busted lip. Those? Manny smiles. This morning I went to tell Coach I quit. Huh? Dog, I hate playing basketball. Only reason I started is because when you're the tall black kid at school, that's what people expect you to do. Yeah, I happen to be pretty good at it, but it's really not my thing. Okay, then. Anyway, Jared was in Coach's office when I said I was quitting. He made a joke about how I couldn't until Massa set me free. I lost it. Manny falls back on the bed. He clipped me once, but I can't even tell you how good it felt to pound that dude. Coach wanted to keep it on the low because he needs Jared to play in tomorrow's game. So he sent me home and made Jared stay in his office till school let out. Well, damn. Manny sits back up. I just want to thank you, man. For what? For helping me get my eyes open. Didn't like what I saw, so I wanted to shut them again. But if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't know some of the stuff I've always felt around those guys is legit. Okay, you're welcome, I guess. Manny stands and opens his arms. Bring it in, fella. What? Man, get your A up and give your boy a hug. You really creep me out sometimes, Manny, Just says, complying. January 23rd. I've got a lot on my mind, Martin. Last night, Manny's dad came down to the basement. In almost 4 years of hanging out at the Rivers' house, I've never seen Mr. Julian in Manny's sacred place, as he so calls it. So when he dropped down between us on the sofa, it felt like a bomb was about to go off. For a good 3 minutes, it was dead silent. Then Mr. Julian sighed. I want to talk to you boys, he said. I gulped and glanced at Manny behind Mr. Julian's head. He looked hella nervous, too. Sure, Dad. Mr. Julian nodded. Today, I overheard an employee refer to me by a racial slur. For real? I said. Yep. White kid. Few years post-undergrad. I hired him 3 months ago. Manny looked pissed. What'd he call you? Doesn't matter, son. Point is, it reminded me of your recent run-in with Jared. I spent the rest of the day wondering if you being in that situation was my fault. Huh? How the heck could it be your fault, Dad? I was wondering the same thing, Martin. There's a lot I haven't told you, Emmanuel, Mr. Julian said. Not sure if I was trying to shield you or if I hoped things were better, but it's something I've been thinking about since Justice was unfairly arrested. He turned to me. The whole incident came as a shock, right? Yeah, it did. When that happened, I kept thinking, what if that had been you, Emmanuel? I know you would have been downright mind blown, but I wouldn't have. He shook his head. That didn't sit right with me because, as your father, it's something I should have prepared you for, son. And Jared saying what he said, I should have prepared you for that too. No offense, Mr. Julian, I said, but my mama's been preparing me for as long as I can remember. I was still caught off guard. You were surprised by what Jared said to Manny? You were surprised by what Jared said to Manny? Oh, not really, I said. Exactly. That's what I'm talking about. I wasn't surprised to hear that kid at the office say what he said. There's no predicting people's actions. But you can be prepared to face certain attitudes. Perhaps if I had been more open with my own experiences, Jared's words wouldn't have been so astonishing to Manny. Neither of us responded. Both of you know what I do for a living, he went on, but very few know my struggle to get there. It took me 4 years longer than average to secure my position because I was continuously overlooked for my promotions. I worked much harder than many of my Caucasian colleagues, but rarely received a fraction of the recognition. Again, we kept quiet. There are still people in that office who refuse to look me in the eye, fellas. They'll show cursory respect for the sake of keeping their jobs, but a good majority of my subordinates resent having to answer to a black man. I was reminded of that today. You fired that guy, right? Manny asked. Mr. Julian shook his head. It's not the first time it's happened, and it won't be the last. This is what I mean by preparation. Manny was livid. But Dad, the young man knows I heard what he said. I have no doubt he'll be on his best behavior going forward. People often learn more from getting an undeserved pass than they would from being punished. That's kind of deep, I said. He shrugged. Kill him with kindness. My point is, the world is full of guys like Jared and that employee, and most of them will never change. So it's up to you fellas to push through it. Probably best not to talk with your fists in the future, he nudged Manny. But at least you have an idea of what you're up against. Try not to let it stop you from doing your best, alright? He rubbed both of our heads and got up to leave. I haven't been able to stop thinking about it, Martin. Frankly, it's pretty discouraging to think Mr. Julian has all that authority and still gets disrespected. Hearing it made me realize I still had hope that once I really achieve some things, I won't have to deal with that racist BS anymore. That's obviously not the case, though, is it? What do I do with that? I have no doubt you would have done exactly what Mr. Julian did. But if it had been me, well, I punched a guy for using the N-word recently, didn't I? The conversation reminded me of something Doc asked me a few days ago. All the work I'm doing to try and get ahead in life, who am I doing it for? Better yet, what am I doing it for? To prove myself? Gain some respect? Be able to shove it in the faces of people like Jared? I don't even know anymore, Martin. Side note, don't ask about SJ. Still getting cold shoulder. It's whatever. Jay. It's the end of chapter 12.